Welcome to the ParentLife Podcast. My name is Jason. I'm the middle school pastor here at Fruit Cove Baptist Church in Jacksonville, Florida. On this podcast, we try to address critical topics for parents who are trying to raise Christian children. Joining us today is Meghan Roy, our preschool ministries director, and I'm very excited to finally get her on. We've been trying for like months, I think, to have you join, so I'm really excited. Except for the topic is probably not the fairest topic for your first episode. So I got a comment from a mom, and the comment was this: my children don't listen to me unless I scream at them.
Yes.
And I think we've all had that moment as a parent, especially if you have little parents, but this is probably applicable to teens as well.
Sure.
So what would you have to say first to that mom? Maybe a word of encouragement or something like that. I know we're going to talk tactics, and you've got your resources. It's going to be great.
Yep.
But how would you just encourage her in the moment?
Okay, so first of all, if you're struggling with this, it's not weird, it's not different, it makes you normal. It makes you a normal human, it makes you a normal parent.
Normal,
yes, it makes your children normal. We all, to some degree, struggle with feeling like our children don't listen unless we are yelling. So, what are we going to do about that? So, the suggestion I have would be, first of all, to reframe how we think of the word discipline and retrain ourselves as parents. So first, discipline. So when I say the word discipline, what word do you hear within that word?
It's like physical discipline or some sort of you've gotten in trouble or something like that.
So that's the connotation that everybody thinks of when they hear discipline. But the root word inside of discipline
is disciple, right?
Yes,
Which
absolutely.
Is very biblical,
absolutely.
Right?
So to be a disciple is to be a learner or a pupil, a student. And as Christian parents is something that we're supposed to be striving towards and working towards anyway. So this is our job, to disciple our children and to think differently about the word discipline. It's discipling. And I think that we can all logically say that when we are yelling and screaming, we are not forming young Christian children and giving them Christian. Exactly. So, and we all know that they're going to do what we do and not necessarily what we say. So, first we have to reframe the way that we think about discipline, and it's not just punishment and yelling. And second, we want to retrain ourselves as parents. So many times, if my children acted the way that I acted, I'd put them in a timeout, you know? And so it's so much of parenting it's more about us than our children. And when we want to change our children's behaviors and attitudes, we really need to change how we're behaving and how we're acting. So the goal is to stay calm in the situation, but still stay connected to your children.
I like that.
Yeah, absolutely. And children will and should make their own parents. And as they make their own choices. And as parents, we're not responsible for those choices that we make, but we are responsible to our children to help shape their behaviors and help them make those good choices. And like I said earlier, those children are going to do what we do and not necessarily what we say. They're going to follow our actions.
And I think that's really important that, you know, our children are sinners just like we are sinners, and so we cannot be responsible for the choices that they make. I mean, if anything, we want them to actually learn that they are responsible for the choices that they make. But on the same token, how we choose or make our choices and how we react and the things that we do in that is actually teaching them.
Yeah. So
kind of like what you're saying, you know, if I'm behaving in a bad way, you know, and if then my child does the same thing, he gets put in a timeout sort of thing. So we have to have this transparency and honesty between us and our kids. I like that.
Yeah. Okay, so by now you're probably thinking this all sounds great, but
but reality sets in, right?
Yes. How are we going to do this? So I'm going to give you three tips here. You're going to give your children a little bit of space. And maybe your children don't have their own room, but maybe they have a part of a room that belongs to them. Whatever that space is, you're going to give them either literal space in their room or physical space to start making a little bit of their own choices.
Now, this isn't a timeout, right?
No,
this
not
is,
necessarily.
You need space, I need space.
Exactly,
right? Okay.
exactly. And this is kind of even more like before the yelling starts. Like this is
Yeah.
kind of like what you can do with some pre-work.
Pre-escalation.
Yes, exactly, before this starts. So children need something that's just theirs. They need to be able to start making choices just on their own. You need to relinquish some of that power. We need to relinquish some of that power. So maybe that's, okay, so think about something that ends up being a battle in your home. Maybe it's keeping the room clean. And maybe there's screaming matches over keeping the room clean. So what you're going to do is maybe you're not going to die on every hill. You're going to think, okay, what do I really want done in this room? I want the clothes in the dresser, as opposed to
on the floor.
On the floor,
on the
everywhere.
Floor. The clean clothes on the floor.
Yes. So you're going to say, okay, this is your room. You want it dirty. You want it like this. My ground rule is that your clothes have to be in the dresser. Beyond that, okay. If the toys are on the floor.
This definitely sounds like we're starting to talk about a teenager now.
Yes. Well, you know, some kids are messy right from the start.
That's right. They're just born that way.
Yes. So I want the clothes in the dresser. Beyond that is your choice. Now, they're going to deal with that consequence. So maybe if it's a younger kid and they want you to come in and say goodnight to them and read a story with them, maybe you're doing your family devotions at night. You know, we can do that, but we can't do it in your room because your room is so messy right now. I can't even step in your room, and I'm worried that I'm going to hurt myself from all your Legos on the floor, kind of thing. So we'll read our story maybe out in the living room. I'll give you a hug and a kiss, and then you're going to have to go tuck yourself in your bed because your room's really messy.
Yeah.
If it's an older child who's decided that they want to keep their room a little messier or whatever, they can't find their homework. Oh, well.
Not my fault, right?
It's lost somewhere in your room, you know, or something else important, not necessarily homework, maybe a band instrument or, I don't know, an electronic device that they really want, although those are probably connected to them at all times.
Yeah, they don't let those down.
Yeah, they don't let those down, but something they really want in their room, but it's lost because the room's messy. They have to deal with that consequence. So give them a little space, physical, literal, to make some choices, relinquish some of that power. Don't die on every hill. So that's my first recommendation. My second recommendation is stability and structure. We're all busy families.
Yes.
You know, and so that doesn't mean that everything has to be to the T, to the hour, structured and planned out, but some stability and structure is important. Children are not going to tell you, I like having family dinner and a dependable bedtime every night. But when do they function best?
When they're having a bedtime that's on the same time as dinner. Otherwise, the next morning, you're like, what happened to all of you people?
Exactly.
Just like my morning today. I felt like,
Many mornings for me. So as much as we can try to build in some stability and some structure, it's going to help with the screaming matches because you're not going to get into those situations where, you know, you're down to the wire because you had a late night the night before and you're trying to get out the door for school, but everybody's screaming, you know. So try to do some of that work beforehand to get, you know, to the next
Just to
step.
have a plan.
Yeah. So the third would be to let the consequences do the screaming for you. You don't need to scream as a parent because you're going to I'm all about just natural consequences, and you don't necessarily need to do the yelling if the consequences are loud and clear in their face. So what that might be is you're telling your children, all choices have consequences, good or bad. All choices have consequences. So maybe I'll give you an example from the Roy house, which may or may not be hypothetical. Okay. Come to the dinner table. Dinner is ready.
That's right.
Nobody's responding. Guys, dinner's ready.
Yeah.
Nobody's responding. I know, Mom. Exactly. So instead of yelling or blowing up, I made this dinner, it's hot and fresh now, get to the table. My husband and I are just going to sit down and enjoy dinner.
Start eating.
Yeah, and we're going to sit down and we're going to enjoy the dinner. And when they come in later, one of our children he really just hates to be alone, and we actually did this once. It just kind of crushed him. He had to sit down and eat his dinner by himself. Yeah,
a cold dinner at that.
Because he didn't come when I called him. So, older kids, we're leaving for school right now.
Ooh, yikes.
So usually, if this child gets a ride from the parent, there are other options, whether it's the bus or walking. So if you say we're leaving in 10 minutes, mean it, And then when you go, when you say you're going to leave, you have to leave, and that child has to get to school another way. That's older children, obviously.
Right.
So.
Or you could just say, I heard one mom say this, we're leaving in 10 minutes. However you look.
Exactly. Shoes, maybe. Socks, maybe.
Yeah. Hair's done. Teeth brushed. Nope. You're going to be the stinky kid today at school.
Yeah. So finally, all of this is easier said than done, and I know that, and we know that. But think about, we're not raising children; we're raising adults, and doing this on the beforehand helps them become better adults and better older kids in the long run.
Yeah.
So.
And just as our parents are kind of laughing and giggling watching us deal with this because they had to do it with us, so one day we will be watching our kids with our grandkids, and we will be laughing and giggling at them like that's what it feels like, and just kind of, it's a good reminder that no one's perfect, no one's going to get this right every time, and if anything's worth doing, just do it to the best of your ability, even if that's not very best feeling. Just do it to the best of your ability. Meghan, thank you so much for coming in and discussing this topic with us. If this has struck a chord maybe with you in your home and in your family, at least I had tons of visions of my family coming through my mind. So reach out to us. It's at ParentLife@fruitcove.com. We would love to interact with you, submit questions. We'd love that. Subscribe to our videos or to the podcast so that you get the update of the newest video every Monday when it comes out at 8 a.m. And again, we're part of Fruit Cove Baptist Church here in Jacksonville, Florida. If you have any questions about our ministry or anything like that, you can find us at fruitcove.com. Thank you so much for joining. We'll see you next week.